Good afternoon. We're going to get started here in just a little bit, but we're still waiting. People are logging in here. We're going to get started. If you want to, in the comments section, type your name and where you're watching this from. It helps us keep a little an idea where all you're from, and that'll give us more time for more people to check in here. And we're still working on getting a couple things wrapped up here, so we'll be starting in just a moment. Hey, good afternoon, Gladys. Good to see you. My wife says I talk too much. My children say I talk too much, so I got to wet the whistle. Hey, Cindy. Good to see you. Robin, welcome. It's a little cooler today in Bemidji. My children are out helping my father do maple sap. They put all the taps out. Let's see, Friday and Saturday, and they put out about 500 taps. My brother has about 600 taps, so between them, they're a little over 1,000. And we are getting, yesterday they got about 200 gallons of sap, which translates into about 8 gallons of syrup. They have to cook it all down, and so they're having fun doing that. Well, not quite as good of a day here in Bemidji for maple sap running, but it's a little quieter around our house with a lot of our children gone. The other day we had just 4 children at home. I realized 4 sounds like a lot to some of you, but for me it was something different because my wife and I, we were at home and we had 4 little girls. The oldest was 9. And it has been 10 years since we had children under the age of 9, and then we had a lot more of them. So it's life is constantly changing. Hello, Maria, and good to see you here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. A bunch of you are watching. So going to get started here. We got a lot of things to go over here this morning. I'd like to introduce to you my guest assistant here this morning, or this afternoon. Lorraine doesn't work on Tuesdays, and so I brought my wife along to work with me today, and she's actually working on a project. You want to bring it up here?
Sure.
She's got a little jealous of my daughter's cuddle blanket that she made, so she came up here and they picked out another one here that she's working on doing right now, and it's hard to see it on the camera, but it's actually violet colors, and she's having a lot of fun with it. She's learning that one of the first instructions is what, sweetheart?
Make sure the nap is running the same way.
Make sure the nap is running the same way. We didn't get a lot of sleep the other night, and she thought that when it says brush the nap, that meant that she could go take a nap and check on the nap. And so she thought she was going to check on it for a half hour or so. So it was one of those things. She's having fun making that. We have a bunch more of our kits coming in. We got a resupply of all of our kits. They're coming in, Lord willing, tomorrow. And we got another 20 bolts of cuddle fabric, I think, coming in, 15 to 20 bolts of cuddle fabric coming in. So we're excited for that. Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the things with embroidery. Now, I haven't done a lot with embroidery in the last 6 months. A lot of us have been busy with other things. And so I thought I'd like to go over it. Some of this might be a little bit old hat for you. Some of this might be very new. And so I'd like to kind of go through this and give you some of the information that I know so that you can know some of the mistakes people have made and you can help eliminate some of them yourself. This is going to be fairly basic, but it's got some good things in there that we want to keep in mind. So the biggest thing I want to start talking about is half of your embroidery. Now, which half? The bottom half or the top half? Well, I'm talking about the bobbin half. Bobbin thread for your embroidery is extremely critical. because your bobbin is like the foundation of your home. You know, it has to be consistent, it has to be solid, it has to stay the same. And if that fluctuates up and down, the top of your machine doesn't know how to adjust the tension. Now, your embroidery machines, a lot of them have automatic tension. So if you're doing a wide zigzag, it knows to loosen the tension up a little bit. Excuse me, to tighten the tension up a little bit so that it pulls it out. But if it's doing a straight run line, like for quilting stitches, it tightens the tension up a little bit. And it's constantly doing that while it's doing embroidery. If your bobbin is not wound correctly, or if it is not giving you a consistent tension, you're going to have a fluctuating tension, and thus you're going to sometimes see your bobbin thread pop through on the top. And so it's very important that you get your bobbin seated in there properly and make sure that it's spinning the right direction. That's huge. Just in the last few weeks, I've had about a dozen customers that have come in complaining of tension issues. We found their bobbin was in upside down, and they told me it's the way they've been doing it for 20 years. And I say, well, if you've been doing it for 20 years, then you've had problems for 20 years, or something changed recently. And so that's a big key when you're trying to diagnose problems. What did I change recently? Did I change my bobbin? Did I change my needle? Did I change my thread? You know, if you switch from that little skinny spool of Gutermann or Madeira embroidery thread and you switch over to Sulky, you're going to have some problems. Sulky is much more prone to shredding. Their rayon thread is much more prone to shredding than some of the other ones. But bobbin thread comes basically in two ways. You can either get them pre-wound, so that they come already all wound for you, and there's a couple different ways of doing it. Some of them have cardboard sides. Some of them have plastic sides. If you have a bobbin case where you drop it in the bobbin and hook it in like most of the newer machines, home machines are, I'm going to encourage you to be very careful with the cardboard sided ones. The reason being is this: as the bobbin empties, the only thing that holds it in the middle is the cardboard, and that cardboard can bend and twist and allow that bobbin in there to turn sideways, and it can be a real mess. So I really recommend, if you're going to buy pre-wounds, buy the plastic sided pre-wounds, and that will help you get by a lot farther. If you have a commercial machine like a 10 needle or a 6 needle, I use the MagnaGlide bobbins. Now these ones, they got a little green side on one there. I don't know if I can get it to focus on me or not. Here, let's do it this way. There you go. This might be a little easier. It's got a green side on one and a black side on the other. Now the black side is a magnet. And that is so that when you put that into that metal bobbin case, it sticks to the back and it gives you just a little bit of drag so that this does not get tangled up in there. That's huge. That's important for those machines. And so those ones that got the little metal bobbin case to stick in, I use these by the 100, and they work really well. So there's nothing wrong with using pre-wound bobbins. In fact, you get the most thread and the best tension with pre-wounds. However, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they are a lot more convenient, because who likes to stop in the middle of their embroidery, unthread their machine, rewind their bobbin, and do some more? But if you want to wind your own bobbins, we're going to talk about bobbin thread here in a little bit. Get your grandkids to do it for you. It's something that they can help grandma, to do it, and you show them how to do it. Now the new ones, they don't have to basically do anything. There's nothing they can do wrong. Wind it around several times, cut it off on the little cutter, start it, and it's something they can do, and have them wind 15, 20 of them, and get them started. Your bobbin thread comes basically in two colors. I don't know if you can see that up there, black and white. And the only thing is what do you want to see on the back of your embroidery? If I'm embroidering primarily on black or something really dark, I will use a black bobbin, but a lot of times I end up using white primarily. So what about if you want to wind your own bobbins? Does bobbin thread make a difference? The question is absolutely. Absolutely. So before, when I was a Janome only dealer, we sold thread from OESD, and it was OESD bobbin thread, and it worked really well. It's 5,000 meters, 5,500 yards, and we can sell a cone of that for $16. That is a ton of embroidery. And it worked well for Janome, because they have a slightly different hook system. in their machines. And they can, in their bobbin case, the tension is formed a little differently than in the brother machines. And so thus we can get a proper tension on that thread. The only thing with it is it tends to be a little bit thicker. And I didn't notice that until I started doing a design that had lots of embroidery in it. And when you have multiple layers on top of each other with thick bobbin thread, what happens is it turns almost bulletproof. It makes it very thick and stiff. When we started carrying Brother, they always sent this little spool of bobbin thread along. And my instructor with Brother said, look, if you don't want to have problems, use Brother bobbin thread. And I go, come on, can it really be that much difference? And so we had a bunch of our bobbins left over from the Janome ones, or from Janome machines, and we started an event with those, and we started having problems. And our educator said, these aren't Brother bobbin threads. And so we went and quickly wound some more. Problems went away. It was perfect. Our tensions were awesome. We had no issues with it. I said, what makes the difference? Well, what happens is they're using a smoother thread that's weighted a little bit differently so that it gets more consistent tension in the brother systems. But their little spools of thread for 1,000 yards was, I think it was $12, and I wasn't making hardly anything on that. It was like, this is crazy. For people who do a lot of embroidery, that's going to cost almost more than, actually it is more. It's more than what the thread on the top cost. And so I started looking around, and after trying a bunch of different ones, we found that the bottom line from Superior, there you can see it, is the closest thing, and it works beautifully. We wind our bobbins all the time here now, and we don't get quite as much on them as they do from the factory, but it is a little bit cheaper to do it. $16 for 3,000 yards. It's a 60 weight thread. So it's a little thinner, and that enables us to get more thread on a bobbin and less bobbin winding. Right now, we're having a hard time getting white, and so we're using off-white because we're having struggles with everything overseas and stuff like that, getting it here in time. But so it's something to keep in mind. Your bobbin thread makes a big difference in what you're using. So you might need to understand. Oh, and the other thing is the Janome hook can use the cheaper thread, but it can't use Floriani. Floriani, as you know, has that luscious shine to it. It's the best shine of any polyester thread out there. Not quite as much shine as rayon, but it doesn't have all of the problems that rayon does. Shelf life, fraying, brittle. You can't bleach it. It fades in the sunlight. Polyester has none of those problems. And so it's one of the things that we found when we switched to the other threads, that it worked very well. But Brother can use Floriani. Brother machines are able to do that because of the way their hook design is. So it's one of those things. There's pros and cons in both camps. I just want you to understand some of the things. That Floriani, we can't use in our Janome without having a lot of shredding issues. The OESD bobbin thread, we can't use in the Brother without having tension issues. And trust me, in the middle of an event, it gets tense real quickly. So talking about bobbin thread, working next way up through our design is stabilizer. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about stabilizer. I'm going to switch over here. Let's talk about stabilizer. What kind of stabilizer should you use? I so many times I get that question when people come into the store. They're getting kind of new to stabilizer, and they're saying, what's the best kind of stabilizer to use? That's like asking, what's the best kind of vehicle made out there in the world? Well, I don't know. Are you a truck? Do you need to haul things, or do you need a smooth ride over the road because you have a lot of places to go? Do you have a whole family to haul? We all have different needs, and there's different stabilizers made for a lot of different needs. So don't think that your quilt shop, your embroidery shop is trying to just get you to buy lots of stuff. When they're offering you 3, 4, 5 different types of stabilizer, there is a legitimate need and use for it. And if you go to Floriani's website, I forget the website title right now, but if you go to their website, you will find that they have a worksheet. If you go to support or resources, they will have a whole worksheet that talks about what the different stabilizers are for and how you go about using them. The other thing that's there is a quick cheat sheet or a reference sheet that shows if you're going to be embroidering on silk, here's what you use. You're going to be embroidering on denim, Here's what you use. And it walks you through a lot of that. But one of the problems is if you get a whole bunch of these floating around, what is this? It's stabilizer. Is this cutaway? Is it wash away? Is it tear away? Well, which one is it? Well, actually, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. So the three types of stabilizer I just talked about. You have wash away, you have cutaway, and you have tear away. So let me explain them real quickly, and then we're going to move on. Wash away is when you have something that you cannot have any stabilizer left behind whatsoever. This is great for towels. This is great for three-dimensional lace, freestanding lace. It is good for christening gowns, things like that. If you have something that you don't want to have that stabilizer ghosting through your image. So you have different things like that it's for. We also have a wash away topper that is used for towels. When you have all that furry stuff sticking up through, it holds that all flat so you have a nice clean embroidery. So you have all that different stuff there. And that's what wash away is for. Wash away tends to be a little bit more expensive. And I don't sell it in big rolls unless someone's doing a lot of freestanding lace and they want me to order it in, because you do save money in those bigger rolls, but it is expensive. And so I don't order it because it tends to get a little bit more brittle with time. If you know, like if you have it sitting there for 3 years, you know, it may get a little bit more fragile and prone to tear as it gets a little older. So that's one thing to keep in mind with that. The other one is a cutaway. Now, a cutaway is exactly what it says. You hoop it up, you embroider it, and then when you're done, you go in the back and you use a scissors and trim around and trim the excess away, and you leave it there. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you're working with t-shirts, you're working with sport shirts like that, they have a lot of that stretch. You need to keep that stabilized permanently. Because what happens is if you use a wash away and you embroidered that design out, there's all these threads pulling in this direction that are not in the rest of the garment. When you throw it in the wash, everything relaxes and it goes to the nearest position. You know what's going to happen in that design? It's going to pucker up like a prune. And everyone's going to say, hey, nice prune on your shirt. No, maybe not. They're usually nicer than that. They won't say that. But that is what you need to be aware of, is that if your fabric has stretch to it, you must use a cutaway. And there are different ways you can do it. If you're using a thin material that you're worried about skin tone showing through or that ghosting around that, we have a cutaway that is flesh toned so that you don't see that ghosting in there. But cutaway is what we use a lot because it is just gold standard. I mean, here, see, this is a woven, but I still use cutaway behind it just because it's quick, it's fast, and it works perfectly every time. The last one is tearaway. And tearaway is by far the most economical stabilizer. And a lot of gals, they just buy a big roll of it and away they go. Unfortunately, it's not for everything, because what can happen with tearaway is that after you tear the excess away and you wash it, some of the tearaway gets very soft and disappears within a few washings. Or if it's not that kind, it'll turn into kind of like a little bit of a paper sheet inside your embroidery, but it has no stabilizing value. And so again, there you can get a little bit of pucker depending on how well your design was digitized. If you bought the design off of Etsy from someone who doesn't know at all what they're doing about stabilizer, then you can do this. Yeah, Rosemary, she has the whole link there. I don't know if that's going to work for everyone else. I don't know if you'll be able to click on that. Nope. Just thank you, Rosemary. She's worked here. Very good. She knows that. That is the look for their stabilizer guide under their resources, and that's where that'll be. So the tearaway is really good if you have a solid, stable material, denim, Carhartts, woven shirts, things like that you know are not going to shrink and move a lot. That is where you can use the tearaway stabilizer. And we do use that for projects. We made cards last week, those little gift pocket cards here in our embroidery class. We used a tearaway for that because we wanted to be able to easily remove that piece of stabilizer that was inside the pocket. and because it'd been too hard to get a scissors down in there. And so we were able to easily tear that out, and it worked well for that. So it's a great tool to have to know what it is. But okay, raise of hands. I'm watching you. How many of you can quickly identify all of your stabilizers without touching it? I don't see too many hands out there. Stabilizers come with this nice shrink wrap on the outside that tells you exactly what kind of stabilizer it is. And then after you take the shrink wrap off and it ends up on the floor and then you clean up and you put it in the trash, you know, there's nothing on here to identify what this is. Well, Kimberbell came out with a really cool product here last fall, and I was going to do a live show and I never got around to it. It's these. They're called their little stabilizer bands, and they're little bands, you know, like those little wrist straps, you know, that people would use it for that, but they're covered with silicone. So it actually sticks to it. And you can, they have, I forget how many there are. They have all the different types and weights of stabilizer. There are 13 of them, all different colors. Here's the pack. So you can see all the different colors, and they're all labeled with their different types. I put a whole bunch of them on one thing here. So that Flexi Foam, you have lightweight tearaway, ultra light cutaway, you have all sorts of different things. But then you just simply take your stabilizer like this, and there you go. It's all wrapped up, and it's not going to get all tangled up. And that is the quickest way. I mean, I can go up there and I can see, especially if I know what color I'm looking for, I can see that from across the room. Oh, there's my stabilizer. And I can go grab that. So we have a lightweight cutaway. We have a wash away sticky way. See, so if you have a pressure stick, pressure sensitive stabilizer, is it wash away or is it cutaway pressure sensitive? And that's sometimes hard to tell if you haven't been doing it for a while. And so, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. They even work on the big rolls. Now, if you get one of the big ones, the big industrial ones, it doesn't work on there quite right away. But as you get them worn down, they work really well. Plus, they entertain your grandkids if they want something to do them. So that's what I really like with that. It's one of the neat features with that product. Now, these ones normally sell for $25. However, during this week, we're going to take $2.50 off of a pack. So if you want a pack of these, I think we have probably 15 or 20 of them here at the shop right now. Either let us know in the comments below or send us an email afterwards, and we will get them taken care of. And you can stop in the store and we'll have them for you as well. Handy tools and that we've really liked around here. Now, the other thing is that once you have decided which one of those three types of stabilizer to use, then you have to decide the weight. So there's heavyweight cutaway, there's medium weight cutaway, and there's lightweight cutaway. The difference is, depending on the density of the design, that's how you're going to determine which stabilizer to use. If you're using a lot of open airy designs, like some of the quilting patterns from Kimberbell and different things like that, we're going to use a lightweight design because that's going to be very easily stabilize it. But if I'm doing like one of the Hopman brothers, those realistic looking wildlife animals and stuff that have like 50,000 stitches in them, you better believe I'm going to be using a heavyweight. I might even be using 2 layers of it, hooping up one and floating the other. So again, choose the proper type of stabilizer based on the garment or item you're embroidering on. And then choose the weight of the stabilizer or the number of layers of the stabilizer on how dense your design it is. Okay? Last thing I want to talk about as far as stabilizer is hooping. I'm going to switch over to the other camera here real quickly, and I want you to see what we got going here. So this is a lot of times when people get started hooping. See if I can get this square here for you so that my OCD doesn't kick in here. So a lot of times I did not hoop this at all, and so this is just a tearaway. I can test it by just quickly tearing a piece off, and it tears nice and clean. And I can take this. Well, a lot of times when we're hooping, I see people doing this. I see them getting up there. Just make sure I got this right. And they're wrestling with this, and they're trying to get all these corners pushed down in. Don't do that. Don't do that. All you need to do is loosen up the knob here enough so that it rests in there easily. And then I hoop it twice. And when I mean I hoop it twice, now I already have it hooped once here, but I get it close to where I want it to be, and I just simply push it down in to give a little crease to the stabilizer. This is especially useful for cutaway or tearaway stabilizer because it's kind of crinkly. It's kind of it feels a little bit like paper. It's not, but that's where I'd want to do that. And then once I get it in there, then I will take, and once I get it pretty much in place, I will take it then and tighten up my hoop a little bit. Now, one of the other things we oftentimes do that is we have some wrinkles in here. Now, I didn't press this. I know you ladies probably all press your stuff right away, and you never iron or embroider on something that wasn't ironed or that's wrinkly. Good for you. I'm not quite that way there, but that's the way it is. And so a lot of times what will happen is when I'm going to hoop this, I need to get that out of there. My natural reaction is to pull outward. And so what happens is this. It popped out of the hoop again. And then I try and get it back in again. And then I try tugging on again and it pops out. And you know what happens? I get mad. And then bad things happen because, believe it or not, our sewing experience is dictated a lot by our moods. And so if you're really in a foul mood that day because of whatever happened, the dog bit the cat or something like that, I don't know. So a lot of times you've got to step back a little bit and say, okay, I'm doing something different here. What am I doing wrong? I'm going to show you a little tip here. Instead of pulling out, which makes it pop out, try pulling in so that it stays in. And see what happens? I can get this all nice and snug without it popping out. And then I just simply finish tightening up the hoop. And that's it. Now I haven't ironed it, but you don't know that anymore. Shh. And now it's all ready to embroider out. And you're good to go. Okay, so it's a little hooping trick. Don't wrestle with it, especially some of these big hoops that are out there now that make this one look tiny. You're trying to wrestle that whole thing all around there. Nope, just loosen it up so you can push it down easily and then push it down in, tighten up a little bit more and make sure that it stays put and work with it that way. It just saves yourself a lot of headaches. Or better yet, buy a magnetic hoop if you want to work with it there. We have those here as well. Okay, last thing I want to talk about with stabilizer is what about spray? Some of you know what stabilizer spray is, and a lot of times we'll spray it on the back of the stabilizer and stick it to our garment. And what it basically does is it does a better bond to the material. And this is really important for some of these big hoops we have these days, because when you're embroidering on, say, a knit or a towel, and you're using one of these big hoops, there's enough of stretch on the material inside the hoop that it can move inside the hoop without pulling any more in from outside the hoop. So the hoop's gripping it tight, but it can still shift things inside there. Stabilizer spray helps you anchor that down over the whole hoop surface and makes it a lot easier to control your project. And you end up with a lot crisper outlines. If you're doing some of those designs that have a lot of red work designs, or it has, like Mickey Mouse has got a lot of black in the very edge, if you're not getting good outlines, I would recommend that you would try using some stabilizer spray. There's a lot of different brands of spray out there. Let me tell you what. Some of them are going to give you a lot of grief. The quilt basting spray is the worst. If you come in here complaining with a lot of problem with shredding threads, breaking threads, and I see gunk on your needle, I'm going to talk to you about spray, because that is what happens. As the spray goes down the same as all the other ones, but as your needle goes through it, it goes through fast enough, it heats it up and it gums the needle up, and it gets stuck in the eye of the needle. And then your thread can't flow through there properly, causing you to have skip stitches and loss of threads there. We sell one brand here in the store, 505, and we have it in two sizes of cans, a 6-ounce and a 12-ounce. And the cost is, I think, $1 cheaper if you buy it in the big can versus the small can. So it's not a huge savings, but it's something there. I have tried a lot of different kinds because you know what? It's not really expensive, but when we're having fun embroidering, I'd rather put the money into things I like rather than things I use. And so I have tried to find different types of stabilizer, and I have found many of them that kind of work, but eventually we end up with that shredding issue, things like that, or they're not any cheaper really anyways. And so I have found the 505 does not gum up my needle at all. We use them and we run 50,000 stitches in some of them, and with some of their designs, and we don't have any problems with gumming them up. But now if you notice, I said something about spray. I said we spray it on the stabilizer first, then we hoop it up. Some of you come in and your hoops look like Sasquatch. You know, they got hair and fuzz and everything all stuck to it because you've been spraying in the hoop for who knows how long. You can restore those hoops to good looks. You can without giving a haircut. Sometimes getting that adhesive off of there is a pain. But we have a product here called Adhesive Remover. It's Quick Clean. They changed the label on it. It used to be called DK5, and it really works well. This will last you for years and years and years. But if you have gunky hoops or you got some of the gunk on the machine, you can use this. However, one word of caution: if you have a shiny surface to your machine, don't use this. It slightly takes off that surface and makes it a matte finish. So I wouldn't use it on your machine, but it works beautifully on the hoops. And so you can use that for cleaning up and taking care of it. Okay. So we talked about the bobbin thread. We talked about stabilizer. We talked about spray and talked about hooping it. Does the garment that or item you're embroidering on, does that make a difference in how well it turns out? Absolutely. There is a big difference between if your fabric. Now, let me back up. You know the fabric I'm talking about. When I say you went and bought it, you got a really good deal on it from that big name place, and you got it home and you made a quilt, and then when you washed it, you lost about 6 inches on the width and 12 inches on the length because everything shrunk up on you. You know what I'm talking about? Well, it's the same thing with a lot of our different garments. If you have an item that you're embroidering on and you've never embroidered on something like that before, you may want to pre-wash it to see once what it's going to do. Some materials are fairly stable. Other ones shrink like crazy. And if you have a stable design in the middle and everything else shrinking, guess what's going to happen? Back to the prune factor we are. And none of us like to have that type of thing hanging from our kitchen stove. And so I've been talking a little bit about the Berg bag towels, and my daughter made this one up here. And it says, every time I say the word diet, I wash my mouth out with chocolate. This is one of the designs that comes as a bonus design from one of the Kimberbell parties that we're hoping to have maybe later this year. And so my daughter embroidered that out. These are one of these Berg towels. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but this is looking at the back of the towel. You can barely see the embroidery through it. That's how thick these towels are. Some of these towels that you get are so thin you can read the newspaper through them almost. And they don't dry the dishes. And so that's one of the things we really liked about these ones. They actually dry the dishes, and they are beautiful to embroider on. Now, we made up this design yesterday, and I'm going to give it away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to stop in the store, and we'll have a box out front for the rest of this month. And you just drop your name in the box, name and a phone number, and we will get you entered in. Or if you're from a ways away and you can't get here, or you don't feel comfortable coming in yet because you don't have your shot yet or whatever, you can send me an email. Okay, I'm trying to throw everything away already. You can send me an email. Send me an email at staff, or at this address, staff@astitch.biz. Staff@astitch.biz, and you're going to say, hey, Jay, enter me in the drawing for the tea towel, and we will get you entered in. Now, as I talked about before, these towels, we sell them individually. We got them all wrapped up nice. They have the dimension stuff on them. Oh, we have a new size. We now have 20 by 20, which work great for cloth napkins. They are as low as $1.50 each. And then we also have the 30 by 30 and the 24 by 38. And they come as low as $1.99. So we sell the tea towels individually. We sell them in 10 packs. And then we sell them in 25 packs. And they are all fairly pressed, and they're all folded nicely, and they really make wonderful gifts, or if you do things for Etsy or craft shows, they really work well. So that's one of the specials that we're having. So we're going to be giving that away. You can also comment online here right now. Excuse me, I'm back up. No, we're not doing that because we've been having problems with the comments. Some of them are disappearing on us, and we can't go back and find them later. And I'm not sure what's happening with if it's Facebook censoring algorithms or what. I have no idea. But one of the other shows that we did, we had someone who had answered it correctly, and then we went back later and we saw their other comments, but we didn't see that one. And so we were trying to figure out, did we just see something or whatever? So we're going to be doing with the email or stopping in the store. Drop us an email at staff@acestitch.biz, or you can stop in the store and sign up till the end of the month. Okay, so that is what we have for today. In the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be working on putting classes up online. We have our embroidery garden party, Garden Guild party from Kimberbell coming up the end of April, but I am working on getting a scan and cut class that will be taught here in the store. I was trying to get a brother educator in here that we could do a workshop, and like we've done for our embroidery party, to do a 1 or 2 day workshop that way. And they actually have an entire day workshop planned. It's just that they're not letting their educators out on the road yet. So at this point, we have no educators available to us until at least July. So until then, I'm going to try and do some things on my own to do it here, but we're still trying to work towards that. So if we can have kind of a workshop or something like that for the scan and cut. We're also going to be doing some new classes on sewing machines. I'm still working on getting some of the videos recorded, training tutorials on the machines, and we're getting our embroidery club for next month figured out right now. One of my new employees, Trudy, she started here back at the beginning of February, and we haven't gotten a picture of her up on there yet. She's a little camera shy, but we're going to get her yet. She said if Lorraine stands with her, she'll let us take a picture. So we're going to get her up. But she had knee replacement surgery March 2nd, so she's taking time out at home for that. But she's been doing a lot of projects up for us so we can get worked ahead and doing some of these embroidery club parties. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. We are going to look to have this again in 2 weeks. We're going to be switching it to Monday. We're going to be doing Monday afternoons at 2 o'clock in 2 weeks. That way my daughter, Lorraine, can be here to help me, and I don't have to fly this ship alone. She has Tuesdays off because she helps an elderly couple with their housekeeping because they can't get around anymore, and so she is not able to be here on Tuesdays. And so I'm looking forward to having her back, even though my wife does a wonderful job for me. So thank you so much for watching. God bless. Have a wonderful spring, and we'll look forward to seeing you just as soon as you can. Take care.